Home builders, listen up. These are the top mistakes you make when building your rifles. Alright, so as the intro suggests, I have gone over a lot of these, but I'm going to try to get the big ones in this video. I think I've got about 10. I may throw in 1 or 2 extra, and I will try to be extra quick. Keep this under 15 minutes. We're going to assume you've got a lower and an upper and the parts ready to go. So my first one here is gas block alignment. When you're putting the gas block onto your barrel, in this case we have this is like a test barrel that I use and a gas block. Not great gas block, by the way, which is why it's on this and not in a rifle. But I guess that goes with buy a good gas block. Buy good quality materials when you're putting this stuff together. Even if it costs like an extra $20 more, $30 more, remember what you're building here, guys. This is something that can function and save your life, or not function and ruin your life. So be safe and get good quality materials. So for your gas block, making sure that it is aligned over your gas port, perfectly aligned over your gas port. On top of that, if you have something like this that isn't pinned and they use these set screws to set it in place, you got to do one of two things, man, if not both. First one is you've got to dimple the barrel where these set screws go in. Don't just screw the set screw onto the round barrel. It's lazy, it's not going to hold, and you're going to over torque it. You're probably going to strip your threads. So just get a punch, drill out some of the bottom of the barrel material here, and use that to make sure that your screws are fully set. If you want to go the extra mile, which you should, but some of you may not have the tools to do that, is pin it. So this is not only, you can see right here, it's pinned and set screwed. This thing is not going anywhere. This was my tester. That's why it's there. The second thing is pretty obvious. Use the right tools. Okay? Get a vise here. This is a Wheeler Engineering. It's good for both AR-10s and AR-15s. You just turn it around, whichever one you're going to use. This sets your upper into your vise securely, so you can work on those important things that you're going to need to do, like tightening down your barrel nut. Also, they sell plastic sleeves that basically mimic a magazine that go into here, right? So when you're working on your lower, you can set that into your vise, and then you can work on all of those lower components together. So get the right tools. An armor's wrench, specifically designed for barrel nuts, for castle nuts, torque wrenches. So when you are torquing down that barrel nut or any other things that need a specific amount of torque, everything that we've covered, you can check out this video right here for torque specifications for AR. Get one of those. So a torque wrench that goes in foot-pounds, and then also they sell torque screwdrivers that work in inch-pounds. You're going to need to know both. And that sets me into my third thing, which is proper torque settings. Number 4 here, and number 4 we've got guilty of doing this, especially when I'm rushing. The old backwards hammer spring. So I see this so much, especially in new builds for you guys out there that are doing these, and it's so easy to do. I get it. And you feel kind of dumb when you do. But when you're installing this spring on your hammer, it has to go a certain way. If it doesn't go the right way, it will be underpowered. Everything will work. This thing will function check and work perfectly fine. But once you start getting into it, you're going to see some failure to fire, some light primer strikes. That is most likely indicated that you have that hammer spring on backwards, and it's very, very easy to do. So the next one is, we've talked about this on the channel, and it is one of the, it's kind of a weird configuration, But if you're not paying attention to this during install, it can easily be overlooked. And that is your barrel matching your lower receiver. So all of the barrels, most of the barrels, have these feed ramps. They kind of extend outside of the lip of the barrel, right? These are your feed ramps. The round rides up through them. They're on either side because remember, when the round is in the magazine, it's either on the left side or the right side, and it will ride up that ramp based on its orientation in the magazine. Now, while all barrels may have these, all receivers do not have matching ramps that will perfectly match up with these on your barrel. And what that can do is it can cause the round to hang up. Now I have an example here of a perfectly matching one. So on this one here, you can see, if we look, let's try to get, there we go. You guys can see right here how the upper has those feed ramps that match with the barrel. They're very tiny cutouts on the bottom of the upper that match the barrel feed ramps. That is ideal. That will ensure that if you are having a failure to feed issue, you can automatically eliminate this. Now, you'll be able to see that in this one, they don't. The upper receiver does not have the feed ramps. So it almost looks like they're cut off, okay? Now, while this is the second best scenario, it's not ideal because the tips of those rounds can still hit that sharp edge of the lower, causing failure to feed issues. So make sure that when you are assembling and getting your components together, you are picking a upper receiver as well as a barrel that have matching feed ramps. The next thing that I see that initially won't cause you any issues, but over time it may, and one, it's just good practice to do, and I do talk about this quite frequently, is staking your bolt carrier group and your castle nut. So along with staking them, getting a quality bolt carrier group and a quality barrel. So this is kind of 2-in-1. So don't go cheap on the barrel and don't go cheap on the bolt carrier group. A good indicator that you have a good bolt carrier group is this. If you look at it and you can see right above these gas, right on your gas key, right? So the screws that hold your gas key to your bolt carrier are staked on either side. You see those little indentations, right? On either side of the screw. That's just going to ensure that this thing is not going to back out. Those screws aren't going to come out. And what will happen if they do is you will start to get leaks. Gas leaks, which will cause your rifle to run undergassed. Same thing goes for your castle nut. How that castle nut is staked. That little notch that attaches the lower receiver to the castle nut has a nice little pin in there, a stake to move that metal out and into your castle nut. You want to do it in two places. It stops this from even thinking about walking out and unloosening on you. You'll know because you'll start to feel your stock twist on you, right? When you're holding it, it will twist. It's not hard to remove. Literally, this is aluminum, right? So this piece right here is aluminum. And all you have to do is get your armor's wrench and turn it, and it will shear off that little indentation that you made. And you can go back to just putting in a new one. Buy the piece. It's $5. Stake it. Keep it secure to your rifle. All right. The next thing is highly controversial. However, as a gunsmith who not only works on ARs, but all variations of rifles, there's a simple process that needs to be done when you're installing your barrel. ARs, as simple as they may be to put together, they're almost like plug and play, but they're really not, especially when it comes to your barrel into your upper. All right, you need to check your headspace. Do not assume just because this guy fits so nice into your upper, and the tab here, that little pin fits so nice and snug, and it doesn't move or wobble around. Don't assume that you are as far back as you need to be, or maybe you're too far back and you need to come up to ensure that you are properly seating that round into battery. They sell what are called go and no-go headspace gauges, as well as what's called a field gauge. I'm not a fan of field gauges. I go with go or no-go. Field gauge is kind of like a little bit okay. You know, I am not a fan of. It's either working or it ain't working. There's no in between. So make sure you check that. They are pricey, right? So you're talking about $45 probably for each gauge, $90. But again, I'm going to go back to my point. I don't care what kind of lower you use, what kind of accessories, hand guards, grips. You can go as cheap as you want or as expensive as you want. That's your prerogative, and you spend your money how you want to spend it. But for $90 to ensure that that round is going to be sitting inside of your barrel appropriately, and that bolt carrier group is going to be locked and in battery for $90 is well worth it. Because if it's wrong and you have just a little bit of opening here, all of that pressure and gas and explosions that are supposed to be contained in this little 2-inch section of your barrel has now gone out into your receiver, and your receivers are aluminum. They are not designed to withstand the force that this thing is about to impart on it. If it's wrong, you're going to completely blow your receiver unit goodbye. So spend the $90, check it. I don't want to see anyone get into something serious because they didn't spend $90 to check your headspace. If you've got friends that shoot, buy one set and share it. Okay? Do whatever you got to do. But please, for God's sakes, check your headspace. So the last two things I've got for you. This one is a final touch. Okay? When you're ready to go and shoot this thing at the range or everything's done, magazine fitting. And you guys are like, what? What the hell are you talking about? Why would I need to fit my magazine? It has the little thing right here, the little button that we basically put this guy in and turn it around, and as long as it does that, it's good, right? No, it's not good. That little button controls this little guy in here. You see this? To move in and out. The more you screw this in, the more this will protrude into your magazine well. Or vice versa, it won't. So, while it may hold an empty magazine, once you start putting rounds in these and they get heavy, if that is not locked in there good enough, they're going to fall out. You're going to think that you're seated, right? But when you go to shoot, all of a sudden you're going to get one shot and the next shot's not going to feed. And you're just going to be able to, look, nothing here. It's just going to fall out, okay? So fit your magazine to make sure when it's loaded and full that it seats in there no problem. The beauty of this little guy right here is that you can adjust it pretty easily. The final tip, and this is the most common of all of them, the wrong gas system for your rifle, or gas length, I should say, for your rifle. We'll call it mismatching. For example, this is a rifle length. So I have a rifle length gas system. My gas tube goes from here all the way in to about, right? So it's rifle length gas tube. Also, rifle length buffer. Also, rifle length, recoil spring. Make sure that they all match up. If I tried, well, I couldn't fit this gas system on something like, let's say, a 16-inch, right? This has a carbine length gas system. I could technically put a rifle buffer in that and recoil spring, and it won't work, right? It's going to be too overpowered. That buffer is going to be too heavy, and that spring is going to be too strong to take the itty-bitty recoil of a 16-inch system, okay? Conversely, if we have something like this guy, which is a pistol caliber system, I wouldn't want to have a rifle buffer or recoil spring on this, right? I want to make sure that my gas system aligns with my buffer and my recoil spring. Now, two things together. So here's the same length system, but two different setups. So the gas system is essentially the same in each of these rifles, but there is one glaring difference, right? This one runs suppressed, and this one does not. So the suppression all on its own completely changes the dynamic of this gas system versus this gas system. They have to be tuned for the way you are using and shooting and your setup is on your firearm. So make sure you are not trying to use one with the other. They should be separate and specific to each firearm. And it may take you some trial and error to find out which one works best. So just be prepared to go down that hole, because you may have to. And it is what it is. And then finally, after everything else has been done and you're ready to take this to the range, when you take this guy out, this hasn't even been shot yet. We've built this 3 years ago and it's been sitting here. I still haven't taken it to the range. Be prepared for issues. You are essentially breaking in this rifle. No rifle ever in the tens of dozens of rifles that I have built over the years, not one single rifle ever functioned perfectly the first session that I took it out. Okay? One, these are all new parts, right? They're all strangers. They're in this weird thing. They got to party together for a little bit, right? You got to put some lube in there. You got to grease them up. You got to run some ammo through them. Let those dudes and dudettes in there get to know each other a little bit and figure out how they operate together as a team. So there is a legitimate break-in period for every new rifle that you put out and you go to test. So be prepared to have to navigate some issues. But also remember, don't start too early. You may have to go one shot, one shot, one shot. It just may be the nature of your rifle right now. As those parts become lubricated and start to break in, and that the painting and the anodizing that was done in the factory is starting to break off and wear out, the rifle will start to work on its own. So just be prepared to have to go through that process. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Until next time, make sure that you're practicing safe weapons handling at all times and treating every weapon as if it was loaded. God bless America. G2 out.